In the near future, humanity begins to look to space for alternative places to live and the possibility of encountering intelligent life, resulting in the establishment of colonies on both Mars and the Moon. The mission for today is to repair a robotic arm at one of Earth's many space antennas. Roy climbs an extremely high ladder without fear, but things quickly turn sour when a strange light starts blinking. A power surge causes a section of the antenna to explode, and many astronauts begin to fall to their deaths. Roy immediately goes in search of the power lever and turns it off, but another explosion hits him and he falls. Surprisingly, he remains calm, and when he gets close enough to Earth, he deploys his parachute, allowing him to land safely. Later, at home, Roy believes he should be feeling something after such an unlikely survival, but all he can recall is Eve telling him he has a self-destructive side before leaving him because of his work. He also watches the news and learns that electrical storms have caused havoc all over the world. Sometime later, SpaceCom's higher-ups summon Roy for a top-secret meeting because they are impressed by his ability to remain calm in the worst of situations, as well as the fact that he has no family to hold him back. They show him spectrogram images of Neptune, which are dense with cosmic ray bursts, which are causing the electrical surges. The Lima Project is mentioned, a name Roy is familiar with because the mission's commander was his father Clifford. It was the first manned expedition to the outer solar system, which began 29 years ago, but the ship vanished 16 years into the mission and all data was lost. Deep space missions were then halted. The crew was thought to be dead, but the power surges lead them to believe Clifford is still alive. The surges appear to be caused by an antimatter reaction, which was the fuel used in the mission. This could set off an unstoppable chain reaction, threatening the stability of the entire solar system and annihilating all life within it. SpaceCom wants Roy to go to Mars and send a message to Clifford, hoping that hearing his son's voice will finally prompt him to respond. Roy accepts the mission despite knowing he has no choice and that they are just using him while keeping a poker face while hearing about his father. After that, Roy begins preparing for the trip by watching the last video his father ever sent him, which was recorded just before he arrived in Neptune. The man left when Roy was only 16 years old, and his message is mostly rambling about the possibility of finding life, but he does end it with a "I love you, son." At that point, Roy is approached by Pruitt, an old friend of his father's who will also be accompanying him on this mission. Pruitt wants to know how Roy is emotionally, and when Roy says he still believes his father is dead, Pruitt says they need to be prepared for the possibility that Clifford is hiding something from them. Roy tries to record a message for Eve the night before the mission, but he doesn't know what to say and doesn't record anything. He admits he hasn't slept much for the next psych evaluation, but he still feels ready, so his trip is approved. Because the mission is top secret, Roy will fly commercially to the Moon and then to Mars from there. The journey is peaceful, but all passengers are reminded that the Moon has no borders and that many mining zones are disputed territories at war. When they arrive at the colony, Roy notices that it has become a commercial recreation, and he believes Clifford would have despised it all. Roy and Pruitt take the train to the SpaceCom base, where Pruitt explains that no one here is aware of their mission. Because the launch pad is on the other side of no man's land, they will be protected by armed personnel. Roy wonders when Pruitt last spoke to his father, and Pruitt admits it was a fight. Since Pruitt considered retiring, Clifford called him a traitor. Pruitt wonders if Roy is concerned, but Roy says he isn't. He considers his father to be a hero and is disgusted by SpaceCom's attempt to portray him as the villain. Pruitt and Roy are assigned to rovers at the base and leave surrounded by soldiers. When they reach an open area, however, they are ambushed by pirates who open fire on them. The two escorting rovers immediately crash, and Roy's suit is punctured, but he quickly repairs it. Roy pushes the body off his rover to take over, driving among some of the base's structures to cause some pirates to crash. Roy then attempts to shoot at the remaining pirates, but they collide with his rover, causing him to fall into a crater. Roy pretends to have lost control of the vehicle, and once the pirates have left, he resumes driving, escaping through the darkness. Once the pirates are a safe distance away, the base launches missiles to kill them. When they arrive at the launch pad, Pruitt admits that he was injured during the attack and will be unable to travel to Mars. Roy knows he should be upset about losing his safety blanket, but he suppresses his feelings. Before Roy leaves, Pruitt hands him a drive containing sensitive information, admitting that it will put Roy in grave danger because their superiors do not trust him. Roy boards the rocket to Mars, where he meets the crew and Captain Tanner, who informs him that Pruitt has been taken to the hospital for emergency surgery. This journey will last 19 days, and no one on this crew is aware of Roy's true mission. Mood stabilizers are given out, but Roy hides in his suit instead. When he has some alone time, he checks Pruitt's drive, which reveals that SpaceCom received an SOS signal from the Lima Project crew, indicating that Clifford had intentionally disabled all external communication. If the mission fails to contact Clifford, they must destroy the Lima Project and Clifford himself in order to stop the surges. Roy wonders what happened to his father and if he truly lost control, recalling Clifford's promise to him that they could work together someday but it never happened. Later, they receive a distress call from a space station, and Tanner feels obligated to assist them per protocol. Roy wishes to focus on his own mission, but his protests are dismissed. Because the co-pilot is terrified, Roy volunteers to accompany Tanner to the space station, where they will split up to cover more ground. Roy discovers some scratches on the walls, and when he re-encounters Tanner, he discovers him floating and shaking. When Roy gets closer, he notices a baboon feeding on Tanner. The animal attacks Roy as soon as it sees him, but he fights it off and manages to tase it. When another baboon appears, Roy grabs Tanner and leads him into another room before closing the door hatch. Roy tries to tape Tanner's helmet shut, but he soon has to return to the door to keep it shut because the baboon is trying to open it. He discovers the pressure hatch and opens it, causing the baboons to erupt. Roy returns Tanner to their ship moments later, but no matter how hard the doctors work, Tanner does not survive, and his body is thrown into space. Later, while everyone is sleeping, Roy undergoes another psychological evaluation and explains Tanner died without showing any emotion. When the computer voice asks for more information, Roy admits that he recognizes the baboon's rage as his own, and that he's always had rage in him since his father left. However, when he looks beneath the rage, he only finds hurt, which keeps him away from relationships. The co-pilot takes over as captain, and Roy replaces him as co-pilot. When they finally arrive at Mars, they are hit by a power surge, and the ship must land manually rather than using the auto-landing sequence. Roy takes over the controls and lands the ship himself, promising his partner that he will not report him to Spacecom. Roy meets Director Helen when the crew arrives at the Ursa research station. She is also unaware of the secret mission, so she is only allowed to accompany him to the building where the other employees are working in confidence. Roy is given a cold pre-written message to read, in which they promise Clifford that they are here to help and that they require any data he may have. Unfortunately, no responses are received, and the technicians decide to try again later. Roy spends some time in the comfort room, trying to decide whether he wants to find his father or be free of him. When it comes time to send another message, Roy abandons the script they gave him and speaks from the heart. He talks about his childhood memories and how he became an astronaut, as well as his desire to see his father again. Roy waits to see what happens and notices the technicians getting excited around the communications, indicating that they have received an answer. When Roy requests to hear the message, the higher-ups refuse and announce that he will be returned to Earth because his personal connection renders him unfit for the mission. Roy notices a crew getting ready to travel on his way out, but they ignore his questions. They put Roy through another psych evaluation before sending him to Earth, but his desperation and anger eventually cause him to crack and disrupt his biorhythms, so he's sent back to the comfort room for the time being. Helen later pays a visit to Roy in order to get some answers. Roy initially tries to keep the secret, but Helen convinces him otherwise by explaining that she was born on Mars and that her parents died in the Lima project. The higher-ups forced her to prepare a nuclear-armed rocket that will depart for Neptune soon, and she wants to know why. Roy tells her what he knows, and Helen responds by showing her a video they received a while ago. Clifford is alive, as evidenced by screams heard behind him in a recording. Clifford explains that his crew began to boycott the mission because they wanted to return home, leaving him with no choice but to kill them all. To cover it all, Spacecom made Clifford a public hero. Roy wishes to confront his father, so Helen sneaks him out of the base in a rover and drops him near a sewer entrance where he can gain secret access to the rocket. Roy arrives at the launch pad after a few minutes spent under dirty water and manages to climb into the rocket just before it takes off. The crew notices him right away, and Roy tries to explain that he isn't a threat, but the base orders him to be neutralized. Two astronauts pursue him, but the rocket accelerates and the force propels one of the astronauts into the wall, killing her. The second astronaut fights Roy, and the captain attempts to shoot him, but misses and instead hits the oxygen tanks. The air becomes poisonous, and Roy tries to assist the captain by putting on a mask, but it's too late. Both astronauts have died. The bodies are ejected from the rocket, and Roy sends one last message to the base, confirming that he will complete the mission before turning off all communications. The journey will last 79 days, during which Roy will be alone with his guilt. He feeds directly into his stomach and uses electrodes on his body to stimulate his muscles. Roy tries to keep himself occupied by thinking about Eve and his father. However, he makes the mistake of watching Eve's last message, in which she confesses that she felt she didn't know him because he was always away, and he also watches videos of his father when he was still sane and hopeful. All of these clips lower Roy's mood, and he keeps daydreaming about his childhood, his mother, his father, and Eve. Roy used to wish he could be alone, but the loneliness on the ship is destroying his sanity, and he realizes how many people he's let down and how selfish he's been all these years. Roy is on the verge of losing it by the time he finally approaches Neptune, but he manages to pull himself together for the mission. He takes a shuttle to the Lima station, but he is suddenly hit by another power surge, and the shuttle begins to fail. Roy tries and fails to dock, and attempts to contact his father yield no results. He is forced to exit the pod and spacewalk into the Lima station. Inside, Roy discovers the bodies of the crew floating around and an old music video playing on a screen. He also discovers his father's room, where he can see all the evidence of his father's obsession with discovering life in space. When Clifford finally finds Roy, he goes deeper inside and begins programming the explosive. And while Roy maintains his poker face, the sadness in his eyes is palpable. Clifford explains that he has been attempting to halt the surge caused by the crew's boycott. Clifford considers this his home, and the captain must go down with the ship. He has no desire to return to Earth and admits to never caring about his family. Roy tells him he still loves him and reaches out to grab his hands, which Clifford reluctantly accepts. While Roy assists his father in getting into his suit, Clifford expresses his pride in his son for traveling all the way here and wonders if they could have made a better team because his crew checked the data and immediately gave up when they found no signs of life. Roy points out that this isn't a failure because they now realize they are their only option. They set the bomb to explode in 3 hours and leave the station, but Clifford attempts to jump into space as soon as they leave. Roy grips their anchoring rope to keep Clifford close, but when he begs for freedom, Roy decides to grant him one last wish. As Clifford floats away into the abyss, Roy finally allows himself to have a nervous breakdown. He floats for a while, contemplating whether he should give up as well, but then realizes he has one more chance. Using the propellers on his suit, Roy returns to the Lima station and removes a panel door, which he uses to protect himself from asteroids while crossing Neptune's rings. Roy recalls the last words his father said to him while downloading the research data as he makes his way back to the rocket. Clifford claimed that by focusing so intently on finding life, he overlooked all the beauty on the planet's surfaces. Roy collides with the side of the rocket, and after rolling around for a while, manages to grab the railing and climb back inside. He runs out of fuel, so he waits for Lima to explode and uses the shockwave to propel the rocket. Many days later, Roy safely lands on Earth, and a group of soldiers immediately rescues him, assuring him that the Lima data has arrived safely. Roy says he's been sleeping well and is aware of his surroundings during his next psych evaluation. He's also more aware of his loved ones now, so he's finally ready to commit and reunite with Eve to begin again. If you are still there, please don't forget to subscribe. It doesn't take much time. Thank you.